Close your eyes for just a moment. Listen to the world around you. Even in silence, the modern world feels incredibly loud, doesn't it? We are constantly bombarded by the opinions, expectations, and judgments of others. Society tells us who we should be, what success looks like, and how we ought to live. This endless noise can leave us feeling lost, exhausted, and disconnected from our true selves. But what if you could step away from the crowd? What if you could find a quiet sanctuary within your own mind, completely untouched by the chaos outside? Welcome back to Buddha Coha. Today, we invite you to pause, take a deep breath, and explore the profound Buddhist wisdom that will help you tune out the noise, reclaim your inner peace, and finally focus on your own beautiful life. Part 1: Releasing the Weight of Others. Have you ever stopped to consider how much invisible weight you carry on your shoulders every single day? It is not a physical burden, but an emotional one. A heavy, suffocating cloak woven from the expectations, opinions, and judgments of the people around you. From the moment we wake up to the time we close our eyes, we are conditioned to look outward. We ask ourselves, am I doing enough? Do they like me? Am I meeting their standards? We spend so much of our precious life energy trying to arrange the world so that everyone else is comfortable, often at the expense of our own profound peace. We bend over backwards, twist our true nature, and silence our authentic voices, all to avoid displeasing others. But this is an endless, exhausting treadmill. In Buddhism, this constant grasping for external validation is recognized as a primary source of our suffering. When we place our self-worth in the hands of others, we essentially hand them the remote control to our emotions. If they praise us, we feel high. If they criticize us, we crash. We become entirely dependent on a completely unpredictable world. To understand how we can reclaim our peace, we can look to a beautiful Zen story from the life of the Buddha. One day, the Buddha was sitting calmly beneath the shade of a large tree, teaching a group of his followers. The air was still, and a deep sense of serenity filled the space. Suddenly, a man who strongly disagreed with the Buddha's teachings approached the gathering. His heart was consumed by jealousy and bitterness. Walking right up to the Buddha, the man began to hurl insults. He shouted terrible words, mocked the Buddha's peaceful demeanor, and tried everything in his power to provoke a reaction. The disciples grew tense, ready to defend their teacher. But the Buddha simply sat there. He did not raise his voice. He did not frown. He looked at the angry man with eyes full of deep compassion and a gentle, unwavering smile. Exhausted and confused by the Buddha's total silence, the man finally stopped yelling. Panting for breath, he demanded, "Why do you say nothing? I have insulted you, cursed you, and disrespected you. Are you not angry?" The Buddha spoke softly, his voice like a calm river. "Tell me," he asked, "if you buy a gift for someone, and you bring it to them, but they refuse to accept it, who does the gift belong to?" The man, puzzled by the question, replied, "Well, if they refuse to accept it, the gift still belongs to me." The Buddha nodded slowly. "Exactly. Today, you have brought me the gift of your anger, your insults, and your hatred. But I decline to accept it. Therefore, it remains yours to carry." This simple yet profound story holds the key to your emotional freedom. You do not have to accept the negativity, the unreasonable demands, or the harsh opinions that others try to hand to you. You are allowed to let their words fall to the earth, untouched. When you stop trying to please everyone, you stop accepting gifts that only bring you pain. It is perfectly okay to set boundaries. It is beautifully necessary to protect your inner peace. You can still be kind, compassionate, and loving without sacrificing your soul to make someone else comfortable. But the trap of the external world does not end with people-pleasing. There is another heavy chain we must break if we want to focus on our own lives, the chain of comparison. In our modern society, we are constantly surrounded by screens that display the polished, filtered, and heavily edited lives of others. We scroll through endless feeds, witnessing the grand achievements, the perfect relationships, and the beautiful travels of people we barely know. And quietly, in the depths of our minds, a toxic whisper begins. Why am I not there yet? Why is my life not as beautiful? I am falling behind. Buddhism teaches us that comparison is a form of deep attachment that inevitably leads to suffering. When we compare ourselves to others, we are committing a profound act of violence against our own unique journey. We are looking at someone else's highlight reel, the best, most curated moments of their existence, and comparing it to our own, behind the scenes, our everyday struggles, our doubts, and our messy reality. This is a game you will never, ever win. Think of a dense, beautiful forest. A towering oak tree does not look at the delicate lotus flower in the pond and feel inadequate. The lotus does not look at the oak tree and wish it had rough bark and deep, sprawling roots. They simply exist in their own nature, growing at their own pace, blooming in their own season. You are exactly where you are supposed to be. Your journey is uniquely yours, filled with lessons specifically designed for the evolution of your own soul. When you constantly look over your shoulder to see how fast someone else is running, you trip over your own feet. Bring your eyes back to your own path. Appreciate the breath in your lungs today. Cultivate gratitude for the small, quiet steps you are taking. True wealth is not found in having more than others. It is found in absolute contentment with what is present right here, right now. And finally, to truly release the weight of the world, we must awaken from the grand illusion of judgment. So many of us live our lives paralyzed by the fear of what other people are thinking. We hesitate to speak our truth, we dress a certain way, and we hold back from pursuing our deepest passions because we are terrified of the imaginary audience watching our every move. We think that if we make a mistake, the whole world will point and laugh. But the liberating, beautiful truth is this: most people are not thinking about you at all. This might sound blunt, but it is the key to your freedom. Just as you are worried about your own insecurities, your own goals, and your own life, everyone else is entirely consumed by their own universe. They are the main characters in their own minds, fighting their own hidden battles. When you realize that the audience you have been performing for is mostly looking at themselves in the mirror, a massive weight lifts off your chest. People's judgments of you are rarely about you. They are simply reflections of their own internal state, their own limitations, and their own unhealed wounds. If someone judges you harshly, it is because they live in a harsh internal world. You do not need to take it personally. Drop the heavy cloak. Step off the stage. You no longer need to perform. You no longer need to compare. You no longer need to accept the toxic gifts of others. By releasing this weight, you create a vast, open space within your mind. And in that quiet space, the real journey begins. If you are finding a moment of peace and clarity in our journey today, we kindly invite you to pause and gently click the subscribe button to join our community here at Buddha Coha. Your presence and support help us continue sharing these healing stories and profound truths with those who desperately need a quiet refuge in this loud world. Now, let us take another deep breath together, as we step into your inner sanctuary. Part 2, Discovering Your Inner Sanctuary. Now that we have gently laid down the heavy burdens of external validation, comparison, and the fear of judgment, a profound shift begins to happen. When the loud, demanding voices of the outside world finally fade away, what is left? You are left with a quiet, open space. For many of us, this sudden silence can actually feel terrifying at first. We are so used to the constant noise, the endless scrolling, the rushing from one task to the next, that the idea of just sitting with ourselves makes us uncomfortable. But this quiet space is exactly where your true power resides. This is your inner sanctuary. Let us explore the first pillar of this sanctuary, the hidden, beautiful strength found in solitude. In modern society, we are often taught to fear being alone. We confuse being alone with being lonely. We treat solitude as if it were a punishment, a sign that we have somehow failed socially, or that we are unloved. If we are sitting by ourselves, we immediately reach for our phones to text someone, to check social media, to distract our minds from the emptiness. But Buddhism offers a completely different, incredibly empowering perspective. Solitude is not a place of lack, it is a place of profound abundance. Think of a magnificent lotus flower. The lotus does not grow in clear, shallow streams where everyone can easily admire it. It begins its life in the dark, murky, muddy water at the bottom of a pond. It grows upward, pushing through the darkness, completely alone in its journey. When it finally breaks the surface of the water and opens its pristine petals to the morning sun, it does not look around to see who is clapping. It does not need applause to validate its beauty. It simply blooms. It is anchored deeply in the mud, yet completely untouched by it. You are like that lotus. When you embrace solitude, you are giving yourself the necessary space to root deeply into your own existence. Solitude is the laboratory of the soul. When there is no one around to impress, no one to argue with, and no one to perform for, you finally get to meet your authentic self. You begin to hear the whispers of your own intuition. You discover what you genuinely love, what you truly fear, and what you deeply desire out of this fleeting life, independent of what your family or society expects of you. Do not fear the quiet. Welcome it. Carve out time each day to simply be. Meditate. Take a slow walk in nature without your headphones. Sit with a warm cup of tea and just watch the morning light change the colors of your room. When you stop relying on the constant company of others to make you feel safe or entertained, you become your own best companion. You build a fortress of inner peace that is so strong, so deeply rooted, that no one can ever take it away from you. As you build this inner strength, you also change the way you interact with the harsh realities of the world. And this brings us to the second pillar of your inner sanctuary, learning how to gracefully handle rejection. Rejection is a universal human experience. It is the sharp, sudden sting of a closed door. Whether it is a job you desperately wanted but didn't get, a romantic partner who decided to walk away, or a group of friends who excluded you, rejection has a way of cutting straight to our deepest insecurities. Our ego immediately jumps up and says, "You see, you are not good enough. You are flawed. You are unworthy." But let us pause and look at rejection through the clear, compassionate lens of Buddhist philosophy. Buddhism teaches us the vital practice of non-attachment. Suffering arises when we cling desperately to a specific outcome, demanding that the universe bend to our exact wishes. We think we know exactly what is best for us. But our vision is incredibly limited. We only see a tiny fraction of the grand tapestry of our lives. Instead of seeing rejection as a painful failure, what if you viewed it as a divine redirection? Sometimes, life's greatest blessings come beautifully disguised as a devastating no. That door was closed because what was behind it was not meant for your highest good. Perhaps that job would have drained your spirit. Perhaps that relationship would have kept you stagnant and prevented you from meeting the person who will truly honor your soul. Rejection is simply the universe stepping in to protect you, gently, and sometimes forcefully, steering you back toward your true path. There is a beloved saying that captures this essence perfectly. In the end, only three things truly matter: how deeply you loved, how gently you lived, and how gracefully you let go of things that were not meant for you. Read that last part again. How gracefully you let go. When you face rejection, feel the disappointment, honor your emotions, but do not let it break your spirit. Do not internalize it as a measure of your worth. Take a deep breath, loosen your grip, and let it go. Trust that the river of life is carrying you exactly where you need to be. When you stop fighting the current and stop taking rejection personally, you free up massive amounts of energy to embrace the new, beautiful opportunities that are already waiting for you just around the corner. This leads us to the final, most powerful pillar of your inner sanctuary: mastering the only thing in this universe you can actually control. Think about how much of your daily frustration, anger, and anxiety comes from trying to control things that are completely out of your hands. We want the traffic to move faster. We want the weather to be sunny on our day off. Most of all, we desperately want to control other people. We want our partner to act a certain way, our boss to recognize our hard work, our children to follow our advice, and strangers to treat us with respect. We build elaborate plans in our minds of how everyone should behave, and when reality inevitably fails to match our script, we suffer immensely. One of the core teachings of the Buddha is the ultimate realization of our own boundaries. You cannot control the wind, the rain, or the stormy oceans. You cannot control the thoughts, feelings, or actions of anyone else on this planet. People will misunderstand you. People will make mistakes. Situations will unfold in chaotic and unexpected ways. The only territory you truly have sovereignty over is your own mind. You have power over your own actions, your own thoughts, and your own reactions. As the Buddha said, rule your mind, or it will rule you. Imagine you are the captain of a ship navigating a fierce ocean storm. A foolish captain stands on the deck and yells at the waves, demanding that the ocean calm down. He wastes all his energy fighting the water, and eventually, the ship sinks. A wise captain knows he cannot command the storm. Instead, he focuses entirely on what is within his power. He grips the steering wheel, he adjusts the sails, he keeps his balance, and he navigates his ship safely through the chaos. When you feel yourself getting upset because someone is acting poorly, or a situation is falling apart, gently pull your energy back inward. Ask yourself, why am I letting external chaos destroy my internal calm? How can I respond to this with grace and dignity? Between every event that happens to you and your reaction to that event, there is a tiny fraction of a second. In that brief pause lies your ultimate freedom. You can choose to react with anger and defensiveness, or you can take a deep breath, anchor yourself in your inner sanctuary, and respond with mindful awareness. When you finally surrender the exhausting illusion of controlling the world and dedicate your energy to mastering yourself, you become truly untouchable. You develop a calm resilience that no external event can shake. You realize that your peace does not depend on the world being perfect, it depends on your mind being perfectly centered. Part 3: Walking Your Authentic Path. When you have built a quiet sanctuary within your mind, and when you have learned to gracefully let go of the need to control the world around you, a beautiful clearing appears on your path. The heavy fog of other people's expectations lifts, and for the first time, you can see your own 2 feet standing firmly on the earth. You are now ready for the most profound phase of your journey, walking your authentic path. To walk this path, we must fundamentally change our definition of joy. This brings us to a vital realization: true happiness is, and always has been, an inside job. From a very young age, society hands us a map and tells us that happiness is a destination. We are taught to play a lifelong game of, I will be happy when. I will be happy when I graduate. I will be happy when I get that promotion. I will be happy when I find the perfect partner, buy a bigger house, or finally save enough money. We treat the present moment as a frustrating waiting room, an obstacle we just need to get through so we can reach the magical finish line where joy supposedly lives. But have you noticed what happens when you finally cross that finish line? The joy lasts for a fleeting moment, perhaps a day, perhaps a week, and then, almost immediately, the mind creates a new desire. The finish line moves further away. We start running again, exhausted and unfulfilled. It is like chasing a mirage in the middle of a burning desert. The closer you get, the further it recedes. Buddhism teaches us that true happiness cannot be acquired, bought, or earned from the outside world. It is not an achievement, it is a profound realization. It is the gentle art of absolute contentment with what is. Contentment does not mean you stop growing, nor does it mean you give up on your dreams. It means you stop waiting for tomorrow to be joyful. You learn to breathe deeply right now. Look around you. Notice the simple, quiet miracles that you usually ignore because you are too busy looking at the horizon. The feeling of warm sunlight resting on your skin. The comforting smell of morning coffee. The sound of rain gently tapping against your window. The simple fact that your heart is beating in your chest, pumping life through your veins without you even having to ask. When you shift your focus from what is missing to what is already beautifully present, you unlock a deep reservoir of joy that has been quietly waiting inside you all along. As you cultivate this internal joy, you will naturally begin to prioritize your inner growth over the loud demands of your ego. We all have an ego. It is the part of our mind that constantly craves external validation, attention, and status. The ego wants to be seen as smart, successful, attractive, and important. It is a hungry ghost that can never be satisfied. If you get 100 compliments, your ego will completely ignore them and obsess over the one single criticism. It measures your worth by counting what you have accumulated: money, followers, titles, and praise. But your soul does not care about any of these things. Your soul cares about depth. When you prioritize your inner growth, you stop measuring your success by what the world can see, and you start measuring it by what you can feel. You ask yourself an entirely different set of questions at the end of the day. Instead of asking, "Did I impress anyone today?" you ask, "Was I patient today? Was I kind to a stranger? Did I handle my frustration with grace? Did I speak to myself with compassion?" Imagine 2 trees. One tree puts all of its energy into growing bright, flashy leaves and towering as high as possible to be seen by everyone in the forest. But it neglects its roots. When the first strong storm hits, the tree is easily toppled over because it has no foundation. The second tree is quiet. It grows slowly. It spends its energy pushing its roots deep down into the dark, nourishing soil. On the surface, it might not look as impressive right away. But when the violent winds come, this tree simply sways. It remains firmly anchored. Your inner growth is the silent, essential work of growing your roots. Cultivating mindfulness, practicing self-compassion, and developing emotional resilience, These are the hidden roots that will keep you grounded when the inevitable storms of life try to knock you down. You no longer need the world to tell you that you are valuable, because you feel your own profound worth vibrating in your very bones. You live with integrity. You walk with a quiet, unshakable confidence. And finally, to truly master your authentic path, you must learn the gentle, bittersweet art of letting go. In Buddhism, one of the most foundational truths of existence is the concept of impermanence. Everything in this physical world is entirely temporary. The clouds morph and change shape in the sky. The seasons shift from the warmth of summer to the cold of winter. The beautiful flowers bloom in the spring and wither in the autumn. Our thoughts, our emotions, our relationships, our successes, and our failures, all of them are passing through. Our deepest suffering arises when we forget this truth. We try to grab hold of water. We try to freeze time. We cling desperately to a specific period of our lives, to a certain person, to our youth, or to an external identity. We hold on so tightly that our hands begin to bleed. But you cannot hold on to the river, you can only flow with it. Letting go is not about giving up. It is not about becoming cold, detached, or uncaring. It is the ultimate act of courage and profound love. It is the realization that everything you have is a beautiful, temporary loan from the universe. When you truly accept impermanence, a massive burden falls from your shoulders. You realize that you do not have to hold on to the praise of others because it will fade. You do not have to be crushed by their criticism, because that too will pass. You do not have to be paralyzed by your past mistakes, because the person who made those mistakes no longer exists. You are completely new in this very breath. Open your hands. Let the sand slip through your fingers. When you stop clinging to the way you think your life should be, you create a vast, beautiful space for your life to simply be. You become like the sky, vast, open, and clear. The clouds of joy, sorrow, success, and failure will drift across you, but they do not change the fundamental nature of the sky itself. By prioritizing your inner peace, accepting the temporary nature of all things, and looking inward for your happiness, you free yourself from the invisible prison of society's expectations. You stop acting in the play that someone else wrote for you, and you finally step out into the beautiful, messy, glorious reality of your own authentic life. Conclusion: reclaiming your power. As we bring this journey to a close, take one final, deep breath. Inhale the quiet stillness of this present moment, and exhale any remaining tension you might still be holding in your shoulders, your jaw, or your heart. We have traveled far today. We have learned to gently set down the heavy, suffocating expectations of the world. We have discovered that solitude is not an empty room to be feared, but a magnificent sanctuary where your truest self can finally breathe. We have realized that the approval of others is a fleeting illusion, and that your own profound self-acceptance is the only validation you will ever truly need. Remember, my friend, the ultimate power to change your life does not reside in the hands of your family, your peers, or society. It does not exist in the relentless pursuit of perfection or the endless scrolling through other people's carefully curated lives. The key to your absolute freedom has been resting quietly in your own pocket this entire time. It is your own mind. When you finally decide to stop living for the applause of the crowd, you step into the magnificent, quiet strength of your own soul. You reclaim your energy. You reclaim your focus. You reclaim your entire life. The path of Buddhism does not ask you to run away from the world. It simply asks you to stop letting the world run you. It invites you to be the calm center of the storm, the deep root of the tree, the beautiful lotus rising effortlessly above the muddy waters. Your life is far too precious, far too brief, and far too magnificent to be spent living in the shadow of what someone else thinks you should be. Focus on your own beautiful journey. Nourish your inner peace. Walk your authentic path with a gentle heart and an unbreakable spirit. If these words have brought you a sense of comfort, healing, or clarity today, please consider leaving a gentle like, sharing this message with someone who might need a little peace, and subscribing to Buddha Coha. We are building a sanctuary here, a quiet corner of the world where you can always return to find balance, wisdom, and rest. Thank you for walking this peaceful path with me today. May your heart be light, may your mind be at peace, and may you live your life truly and fully for yourself.